Hello, a very good evening to you. Welcome to ITV News. This is Wednesday night's calendar.
Hello, here are tonight's main stories.
The dangerous reality of our changing climate. A year on from the hottest day, the stark warning from fire crews as they adapt to deal with new risks.
The traditional wildfire is now moving closer to urban areas, and areas of grassland that are joined to rear gardens and such like pose a far greater risk now than they previously did.
Meanwhile, in West Yorkshire, how the Bramham estate, more used to music festivals, became a record-breaking hotspot with hundreds of acres of land bearing the brunt.
The whole place was brown, particularly beech trees. We've got millions of beech trees. They undoubtedly suffered stress, and we'll see that over the next few years.
Food chain fears, warnings that supermarket shelves could go empty again after supply issues caused problems earlier this year.
And Bayek, it's been some journey. We're with the Blaze boss in Lisbon as he explains how his managerial lows have prepared him for the Premier League.
Weren't thinking about managing again or managing the Premier League or thinking your chance is gone. Success on the pitch, failures on the pitch, success off the pitch. You'd be foolish not to be able to learn from it. I think it's impossible not to learn from it.
Hello, thanks for joining us. First this evening, two warnings from firefighters about the new risks posed by our changing climate. It's exactly a year since the record-breaking temperatures which saw the mercury top 40 degrees for the first time in this country.
Well, devastating wildfires broke out in urban areas across South Yorkshire, a growing threat which the fire service says it's now having to adapt its training and equipment to cope with. Emma Wilkinson reports.
A fire on the railway line. We are very busy at the moment, but as soon as we have a fire engine available...
Fire rescue, what's the address of the emergency? OK, what about?
There were just that many calls coming in that we didn't have enough staff to take them. We took about 2,000 calls within a 24-hour period, to the point where we were taking calls and we had no fire engines to send to people. It's a very scary experience. I've never been in that situation before.
Today on Woodland Drive in Barnsley, wildflowers grow where wildfire once raged and houses once stood. They hide the destruction that many firefighters fear won't be a one-off.
Last summer, across Yorkshire and the Humber, the number of outdoor fires that crews responded to rose by 129% compared to the previous year. And experts say the climate crisis means there will only be more hot, dry weather and therefore more extreme fire behaviour with more extreme consequences.
I think that's part of the increased risk that we're seeing with extreme weather is the traditional wildfire is now moving closer to urban areas, and areas of grassland that are joined to rear gardens and such like pose a far greater risk now than they previously did.
And so South Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service says it's doing everything in its power to prepare and to try and prevent a repeat of last year. They have a wider range of equipment so they can deal with different scenarios, like these smaller, all-terrain vehicles fitted with water pumps. But effectively fighting fires is about much more than just having the right tools for the job.
We've improved training for operational crews. We've looked at how we collect operational risk information on areas that are likely to be involved in fire, and we've also introduced a plan that covers our resilience in terms of our fleet and our staffing arrangements as well.
We've reviewed all the meteorological data from last year, and using that data moving forward we can now be far better prepared to see these spikes in extreme weather coming.
It's these sort of areas, Chris, I think that pose one of the biggest risks if we look around, and there's quite a lot of litter. And
the huge demand the service experienced last summer has only underlined the importance of preventative work in communities and encouraging everyone to play their part.
Keeping the grass nice and low and making sure people aren't using barbecues in these sort of areas as well.
This service says it's doing all it can to respond to the fires that increasingly threaten our way of life. But there is an acceptance that unless we all respond to climate change, it will be a service under pressure like never before. Emma Wilkinson, ITV News.
Well, I remember that day vividly this time last year. Kerry's with us now. What a day it was.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all eyes on the wildfires in Greece at the moment and the heat in Europe, but it was last year the world was actually watching us. It really was a jaw-dropper for all climate experts, meteorologists and weather presenters across the globe. This was our high today, 21. It's our average, and this time last year, 40.3. And it was a number of things that gave us a real extreme weather event. It started on the 16th. By the 18th, on the map you can see on the left, we'd already broken records, and you can see that it's our patch, the southeastern part of the UK, that was really bearing the brunt of the temperatures. By the 19th, most parts of our region were about 37 degrees above, and it wasn't just how high the temperatures were, it was how widespread the heat was and how far north it went. So these are the highest, or the ones that broke the previous record of 38.7 degrees Celsius. So Coningsby still is our record, but Sir Gwyngley on the Hill, the Nottingham Trent Valley there, 40.1, and it was Topcliffe that was our most northerly highest temperature, 39.6, a record, and Leeming was the most northerly extent that broke that previous record of 38.8 Celsius. And it wasn't just about how far north and how widespread and how hot it was was how extreme it was compared to the previous site. So many of our regional sites beat their previous record by a staggering number of degrees rather than a fraction of what we'd expect. So one of which was Bramham in West Yorkshire. So I went to find out how the estate there is coping with a challenging and changing climate.
Set in rolling countryside, from pasture to forest, farms and fields, the Bramham estate covers 4,000 acres of the West Yorkshire landscape. This week's Sunshine and Showers tells a very different story to 12 months ago. As the country sweltered through a record-breaking heatwave, this place registered a pretty gobsmacking temperature record of its own.
This time last year here in Bramham, the mercury rose to 39.8 Celsius. That's 6.3 degrees above the previous record and the highest jump of anywhere in the UK.
It left the entire estate parched.
The whole place was brown, and we won't see a lot of the trees. You won't probably see the effect of that for 4 or 5 years. So particularly beech trees, we've got millions of beech trees. They undoubtedly suffered stress, and we'll see that over the next few years.
So the entire environment is in shock.
Absolutely.
And trying to
responding to the change and trying to do what it can. We now grow maize for our anaerobic digestion plant, and which is something that 20 years ago my parents and grandparents would never have dreamt of being able to grow maize this far north.
Every year, the estate is a huge draw for horse lovers and music fans alike. Bramham Horse Trials and Leeds Festival bring in thousands of visitors.
What kind of impact does that have on the environment here, and what are you doing to mitigate that?
We do these things to keep the place together, to keep body and soul together, to keep what you can see here looking as it is, and there's no such thing as a free lunch. We've got an awful lot of trees, we've got an awful lot of agricultural land, both of which sequester carbon. That already mitigates any effect there might be from all these thousands and thousands of people coming here. And you hope, on balance, that the equation is on the good side rather than the bad.
Forests cover almost a quarter of the entire estate. It's an opportunity to capture thousands of tonnes of carbon, but ash dieback disease has taken its toll.
We're looking at these trees behind us here, and anyone walking around the estate would see that you've been chopping down trees, and that wouldn't look very sustainable and not very climate friendly, but it's for a really good reason, isn't it?
Yes, the trees that were here, that were standing here, these ash trees in these coops, were starting to die. To clear these areas enabled us to replant a more diverse mix of species. We're also diversifying the provenance of those species, so we're choosing seed from seed stands in Central Europe, in France, in Germany, in order to hopefully match the temperature increase over here, so when them trees establish, they're already used to it. Hopefully these trees will continue to grow, they'll thicken up, the canopy will close. These young trees, they're going to sequester carbon as they grow, which will then be locked in for future generations.
While actively capturing carbon in the forests across the estate, efforts are being made to actually reduce how much is released in the first place. They've built an anaerobic digester plant to produce green electricity for the national grid.
So Josh, we're literally stood on what is effectively a massive man-made cow's stomach. Can you explain to me what's going on here?
Yeah, definitely. So what we do is we take the crops from the field, so with a mixture of crops with maize, whole crop and grass silage, and then every day we feed a certain amount of that into this digester. It mixes round and creates methane that comes up this pipe, along it and down into the gas bag. That's essentially a fuel tank for the engine that runs off methane, generates electricity that then goes into the grid. When we're running at full capacity, we can generate enough electricity to power 1,500 homes.
Bramham Estate has stood here for more than 300 years, and for it to survive and thrive for another 300, there's a delicate environmental balance to strike in the face of a warming climate. Yes, we've seen with both of those pieces, they're adapting and changing and preparing for our changing climate. I don't think I'll forget that 40.3 for some time to come. And there is a little article on the website if you're interested in a more detailed analysis of what happened this time last year.
Glad to see you had to wear your little warm top there.
It was, yeah, it wasn't the best, was it?
Thank you. Nice. Now then, still to come before 6:30.
You can meet new friends and you can have fun.
The Lionesses' legacy as England count down to their World Cup kick-off. How the grassroots game is booming.
From England's Lionesses to the Lisbon Lions, I'm out here in Portugal following Sheffield United as they step up their preparations for the new Premier League season with a friendly against local side Estoril.
Other news now. 2 men involved in a string of samurai sword robberies at convenience stores in Leeds have been jailed.
Open it or I'm going to hit you with it. Open it or I'm going to hit you with it, believe me now.
Police have released this CCTV footage of the gang robbing one shop in Leeds. The group targeted 3 shops in 9 days, threatening staff with weapons and stealing thousands of pounds in cash and goods. Jeffrey Chikosha and Brandon Jarrett were jailed for a total of 15 years after an officer watched the footage and recognised one of their voices.
Police are investigating a suspected arson attack in Sheffield after dozens of vehicles were set on fire overnight. Crews were called to a car recovery company on Parkway Drive after a blaze broke out at around 11 o'clock. At its height, 10 engines were involved in efforts to get the fire under control, and people living nearby were advised to keep their windows and doors shut. No one was injured. 50 cars and 2 motorbikes were involved.
Now, we frequently talk about the high cost of food, rent and mortgages, but for the first time since March 2022, there's actually some good news. This month's inflation figure has fallen further than expected to 7.9%. And according to ITV's Martin Lewis, that is a good sign.
Yes, but will it make a difference to the cost of our supermarket shop? Experts still warn that our supply chain is fragile and faces future disruption if steps aren't taken to strengthen it. Nick Smith's been investigating.
The sheer logistical endeavour of sending fresh food to all corners of our region was thrown into disarray earlier this year when, for weeks, we saw empty shelves in our supermarkets. Suddenly, we were asking how robust our supply chain really is. Just over half of what we eat is grown or reared on this island. James Johnson farms a mix of arable crops and meat near Ripon and says those like him are being hit hard by their own cost of living squeeze.
Take, for example, our fertiliser price compared to our wheat price. 3 years ago, we were buying fertiliser in at £190 a tonne. Our wheat price was very similar. Today, we are buying fertiliser in at £330 a tonne, and our wheat price is back down at 190 at the same. You know, when we're spending that amount of money on growing a product that then can get completely taken away by something that's completely out of our hands, whether that's been drought or extreme rainfall, it puts a huge amount of risk on in our farming business.
Our farmers are of course a key pillar in our food supply chain, yet they're facing pressures the likes of which we haven't seen for generations. Battling against rising inflation, the threat of climate change, a shrinking workforce and ever increasing demands from supermarkets and their customers.
This is extraordinary. We're facing 43% higher inflationary costs of inputs than we were in 2019. And obviously for farmers and for growers, if they can't pass some of those costs on, they are having to manage their business accordingly. Many people will have suffered from the salad rationing, not being able to buy eggs. And if we don't act and come together and find ways of dealing with inflation throughout the supply chain, there is a danger that we'll face it again. What we're seeing is the lowest level of production since records began.
Supermarkets occupy 90% of the retail food market, and the British Retail Consortium insists they do understand the need to pay a substantial rate to farmers, but want to ensure customers have the best value for money in a cost of living crisis. And as we look back over one of the hottest, driest Junes on record, perhaps the biggest threat of all to our food supply is now manifesting.
You can see on the soil in front of you, for example, we've got cracks, so it's already showing that the impact of the weather that we've had recently. We see the life cycles of crops get shorter due to those warm conditions. That has a direct impact on reducing yields. Of course, there's also impacts on livestock production as well. So they will eat less during periods of extreme heat, which will obviously then reduce their growth rates. And there's been a lot of work done by the farming community and research that's being carried out to look at ways in which farmers can adapt.
Our home food supply faces immediate and long-term threats, and with an ever-rising population, it will be an issue which will surely grow into bigger and bigger prominence. Nick Smith, ITV News.
On to some football now, and as England's Lionesses count down to their World Cup kick-off, more on that in just a moment, let's head to Portugal, where Sheffield United are about to be in action.
Yes, the Premier League side have been doing some pre-season training near Lisbon and will take on local side Estoril this evening. It's hard work in the heat, but they're not complaining.
Nor is our sports correspondent, Chris Dawkes, who's travelling with the team. Hola, Chris. Where are you tonight?
Hola. Yeah, I'm not complaining one bit, Ian and Lara. Yes, well, as you can probably see behind me, I'm at the Estadio Antonio Coimbra da Mota. That's the home of local side Estoril. Now, they play in the Portuguese top flight, the Primeira Liga. They finished 14th last season, so this friendly match here against Sheffield United will be a good test for Paul Heckingbottom's men. A little bit of background on Estoril itself. Now, it's situated in the heart of the Portuguese Riviera. It's an exclusive and one of the most expensive places to live out here in Portugal. It's a playground for the rich and famous, celebrities, royalty, all holiday here. But tonight there'll be 200, maybe 300 Sheffield United fans within the vicinity, aiming to see how they're looking ahead of the new Premier League season. It's one of Europe's most popular tourism destinations. Every year millions flock to Lisbon by land, sea or air. Sheffield United are in town this week, and their manager Paul Heckingbottom has been on quite the journey himself. From the highs in his first job at hometown club Barnsley to the lows at Leeds and Hibs in Scotland. Then the redemption, promotion to the Premier League at Bramall Lane in April.
Weren't thinking about managing again or managing the Premier League or thinking your chance has gone. I've fallen back into that role, if you like, through doing my job with the players.
And I imagine you learnt a lot from those experiences as well.
Yeah, of course you do. You've got to, and I think success on the pitch, failures on the pitch, success off the pitch. You know, you'd be foolish not to be able to learn from it. I think it's impossible not to learn from it.
What would be a good season for Sheffield United?
Competing, making sure I enjoy the games on the sideline. That's what I'll be happy with. If I enjoy how we attack the game, if I enjoy development in our players, if I see our players playing with a smile on the face, if I see that connection again between the players on the pitch and the fans in the stadium, that'll be a successful season.
Now, this is one of Lisbon's most popular tourism attractions, the Castle of St George. It's stood here since the 5th century, despite coming under siege a number of times down the ages. Well, Sheffield United's defence will need to be just as strong when it comes under attack from the Premier League's best players. Chris Basham and John Egan are stalwarts of that Sheffield United defence. Both were in the team the last time the Blades played in the Premier League.
It's just getting better and better all the time. I mean, you see the players the top clubs are signing,
you know, we know the challenge is going to be a tough one, but you know, we want to work as hard as we can now in pre-season. You know, hopefully keep the squad together and, you know, try and be in the best shape possible when it kicks off.
Obviously staying up would be an amazing achievement again for the team, but last time we said that we finished 9th and then we got relegated the year after, so hopefully we can stand our ground in there, be strong amongst ourselves, create some great opportunities and memories for the fans.
There's no question it's going to be a real challenge for Sheffield United in the Premier League. The hope is, out here in Lisbon this week, Heckingbottom has prepared his troops for the heat of battle.
Yeah, Chris, it looks like Heckingbottom might be your new BFF. We understand that the Blades have added to their squad in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, that's right, Lara. They've signed the 20-year-old Ivorian striker Benny Traore from a Swedish side Häcken. Now, he scored 12 goals in 14 games in the Swedish top flight this season. They play during the summer months, and Blades fans will be hoping he can reproduce that form in the Premier League. Now, unfortunately, he won't be able to feature here tonight because he hasn't got his work permit through, but Sheffield United's other two signings, Yasser Larouci and also Asim Slimani, will be on show to the fans. Well, we'll have the best of the action. We'll be speaking to some of those fans who are here tonight, and you can see that on calendar tomorrow night at 6.
Thanks very much, Chris. We'll look forward to that. Thank you.
Brilliant. Now then, tomorrow marks the start of the FIFA Women's World Cup, and on Saturday all eyes will be on the Lionesses for their first match against Haiti.
Training is well underway on Queensland's Sunshine Coast in Australia. This was the team, which includes 5 players from the Calendar region, warming up earlier. Sadly, Beth Mead, who hails from near Whitby, is not part of the squad this time because of injury, but she's been giving them her full backing, as you might expect.
Well, the success of England's women's team has already encouraged thousands more girls into the sport, and hopes are high that another knockout performance will continue this legacy even further, as Amrit Birdie reports.
Warming up ahead of a kickabout. In decades gone by, reserved for the boys. But on this pitch, it's girls only. Inspired by the huge success of the Lionesses at last year's Euros, clubs like this one in Ackworth in West Yorkshire are busier than ever.
You get loads of friends and you get to have loads of training sessions and you can score lots of goals. I love to score goals. You can meet new friends and you can have fun.
Such a fantastic effort from the Lionesses, and we were just inundated. My phone was red hot and it was just great. It's just brilliant to see so many girls wanting to get involved in football.
This year's Women's World Cup is taking place in New Zealand and Australia and will see the Lionesses compete for the top spot once again. Although injury has held last year's Golden Boot winner Beth Mead from the World Cup squad, she's confident England's women will continue to inspire girls into the sport.
We want, the younger generation to come in and be excited. Like, why can they not have a little figurine of them around and people chanting and cheering their name? So it's really exciting that the younger generation now have that to look forward to, and they can aspire to do that.
But the Lionesses' legacy goes even further. Earlier this year, their open letter to the government achieved a landmark change, with every girl in England to be given equal access to football and school sport.
I think the women's game is really changing lives, I really do. You speak about young girls wanting to play football and just feeling like they can play football, like not getting bullied because it's a man's sport. I think people recognise now that football is for everyone.
And yet there is still some way to go until the playing field is level, with organisations like Women in Football flying the flag for more representation for women at all levels of the game.
We heard so many stories during the Euros about lionesses who'd had to pretend to be boys to play the game, and we've heard about women who've come back to the game who weren't able to play when they were growing up because it was banned for 50 years. So it's unbelievable to kind of have this moment where we've got such strong and accessible role models in the women's game, calling out for more opportunity for young girls and young boys.
The Lionesses will face off with Haiti on Saturday in what's sure to be another legacy-making competition for the women of the moment. Amrit Birdie, ITV News.
We wish them all the very best, don't we?
We do, and I know lots of young girls who are taking part in football now, which is great. It's obviously making a difference, isn't it?
It certainly is, yes. Well, if they do well, we'll see more girls follow, won't we? Now then, let's get the weather forecast. Here's Kerry.
good visibility on the horizon. TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Yes, thank you. Hello again. This July turning out to be a very different weather story compared to last year, but we did see some sunny spells across the region during the course of the afternoon. A big thank you to June Hornby for sharing this shot in North Yorkshire, and also to Machiko Smith for sharing this one in West Yorkshire. So we've basically got high pressure to the south of the UK for much of the next few days, all the way through into the weekend, and that is allowing for a west-northwesterly flow and for this area of low pressure to develop and come towards us. So by the weekend, wet and windy. But in the meantime, for this evening and overnight tonight, yes, still a few showers over the next few hours or so, but you can see that it quietens down a little bit for the second half of the night. And with a combination of relatively light winds and clear skies, 1 or 2 mist and fog patches, those temperatures will take a bit of a tumble in rural spots and dip down into single figures. So as we head towards dawn, there are your sun times as we head into Thursday. 5:01 and 9:23 are your sun times for tomorrow. So it could be a bright start in places, mist and fog soon lifting first thing in the morning. But as the day progresses, we will see 1 or 2 showers once more develop, and they could be on the heavy side. But in between, there'll be some sunshine, and in the sunshine, out of that relatively fresh wind from a northwesterly direction, we will get temperatures around the average once more, 20 or 21 Celsius at best. Now, as we head through tomorrow night and into Friday, again, it's a mostly dry story to start, but we will see the showers bubbling up. So perhaps a bit more cloud as Friday progresses and an odd shower, but it will turn increasingly unsettled overnight into Saturday. Hopefully some sunshine with our showers by Sunday.
TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Thanks very much, Kerry. Thank you as always. Now then, finally, before we go, just a quick warning, there's some flashing images coming up actually, but we wanted to leave you tonight with some really great news about a young man we featured on Calendar earlier in the week.
Yes, you'll probably remember 16-year-old William Barlow from Chesterfield and his arresting arrival at his school prom. Well, William and his friends were put in the back of a police van in a mock arrest. It was all a treat from Derbyshire Police, who heard about his treatment for cancer. Well, we've some even better news tonight, because his mum has been in touch to say that William's now been given the all clear. So it's fantastic news.
It's brilliant, and we're told actually that William and his family are watching Calendar tonight, so we just want to say a really big hello to you and to say how happy we are to have such great news.
Absolutely. That's all from us for now. Great news for you, William. Good night from us all.
Good night.
Good night.